think we can get started.
Okay. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Humphreys, and along with my colleague, Vicki Bush-Joseph, we'll be acting as moderators for this evening's program. We are members of the Book Club Committee for Together Women Rise, and we're here today to for a discussion of Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone of some basic Zoom instructions. Please place your audio on mute during the presentation. We'll be using the chat feature throughout tonight's call. This is the place where we'll share links, questions, and where you can enter comments or questions. We also encourage you to use the chat to enter where you're from, as we have people on the call from across the United States. You've got two options for the Zoom views, speaker or gallery, and they can be found in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Gallery view allows you to see everyone and will be most useful when we're in the smaller breakout groups. On this evening's call, we have members, guests, and others who may be completely new to Together Women Rise and want you to know all are welcome. Together Women Rise is a powerful community of women and allies dedicated to achieving global gender equality. We have hundreds of local chapters across the US where members learn about gender equality issues, give grants to organizations that empower women and girls in low-income countries, and build community to forge meaningful connections with each other and with women and girls around the world. Our book club is another way to engage in our mission, to learn about gender equality issues, excuse me, and to experience community with others who care about making the world a better place for women and girls. For more information on our book club and Together Women Rise programs, please visit our website at togetherwomenrise.org. For this evening's agenda, we'll be taking a slightly different approach than usual. Recognizing the importance of the book's topic, we've allotted more time for the breakout group discussions. And once all participants come back together into the main meeting room, we'll share some key insights from those discussions. We'll be providing some exciting news about future events and have our popular book giveaway. So please stay until the end. You don't want to miss this. And remember, you've got to be present to win. Vicki?
Thanks, Barbara. As Barbara said, I'm one of the members of the book group committee, and our committee, given the topic of the book and the themes in the book, when we were planning tonight's program, it occurred to us to reach out to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusive Committee for Together Women Rise. And in reaching out, we asked if there was somebody who would like to address the group. We're lucky tonight to have Dr. Shanice Chris. She's been a member of Together Women Rise's board of directors since 2019, and she currently serves as the chair of the board's Diversity, Equity, and an Inclusive Culture Committee, and the chair of the Diversity and Leadership Learning Hub. Dr. Chris is a health science faculty member at Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina, and an elected official on Travelers Rest City Council. She also serves on the board of directors for Prisma Health, Public Education Partners, and South Carolina YMCA Youth in Government and Teen Achievers. She has been named a change maker by the Jefferson Awards Foundation. With a passion to implement effective public health interventions and policies, she earned her doctorate from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, her master's in public administration from Harvard Kennedy School of Government, a master's in public health from Emory University, and a BA in communication from Oglethorpe University. Dr. Chris has been a member of Guiding for Women South Carolina Greenville 15 chapter since 2018. Dr. Chris?
Thank you so much for that introduction. I am so happy to be here tonight, and I love this partnership that we have tonight. So on behalf of Together Women Rise Board, thank you all so much for attending this important discussion today. Since 2017, an extraordinary group of Together Women Rise members have been championing diversity, equity, and inclusion for our organization. They came from different chapters nationwide, all focused on learning and growing and understanding and knowledge of how to create more inclusive communities. They did amazing work. So based on their momentum, in October 2020, the board of directors made the monumental decision to elevate these priorities to the highest level by creating the new board level Diversity, Equity, and Inclusive Culture Committee, which I'm very excited to lead. This decision ensures that DEIC will be incorporated throughout our organization and will be considered a top board priority, like financial accountability, excellent grant making, and program oversight. So as I think about diversity, equity, inclusion, I like to use the metaphor, a proverb that says, a lot of different flowers make a bouquet. And to extend this illustration, I think that the variety of flowers represent diversity. Then ensuring that all the flowers have sunlight and water to thrive and grow represents equity. And each flower feeling beautiful and appreciated in the bouquet will represent and represents our inclusive culture. This committee's goal is to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusive culture into our strategic goals, priorities, and operations. An innovative part of this initiative is the Diversity and Leadership Learning Hub, and we just call it the Hub for short, which is a subcommittee that includes representation from the board, national volunteer committees, and operating teams. So for instance, tonight, I'm just so appreciative and grateful to the book club committee for picking such a phenomenal book and giving us an opportunity to really discuss this issue. The hub itself has met several times, and we're actively engaging in how our organization presents itself and how we, the membership, can engage in this work. So tonight, we are already actively engaging in powerful conversation. And I sincerely thank you for that. And I can't wait for this conversation. And now I would like to pass it over to Barbara. Have a good night.
Thank you, Shanice. Thank you very much. So next on the agenda is we're going to, in lieu of having the author on the call, which we've been fortunate in the past on several big reads to have the authors with us. This evening, as a precursor to our book discussion, we're going to show a short video of a 2020 PBS interview with the author, Isabel Wilkerson.
The focus on Black Lives Matter remains, of course, one of the biggest subjects in the national conversation right now. A new book looks at how hierarchy and class are very intertwined in the way race and racism plays out in America. Jeffrey Brown talks to author Isabel Wilkerson. It's part of our ongoing arts and culture coverage, Canvas.
In 1959, Martin Luther King Jr., visiting India and seeing its caste system, realized he was a kind of untouchable in his own land. It's one of many stories told in the new book, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent, which asks us to see our country in a new way.
I really was looking to better understand the very long-standing origins of divisions in our country. You know, the era in which we live, this era of upheaval, really requires and calls for new language, new ways of seeing one another, new ways of understanding how we interconnect, and also what we've inherited as a country and as a people.
Isabel Wilkerson is a former Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist with the New York Times and author of The Warmth of Other Suns, a history of the great migration of African Americans out of the South. Working on that book, she came to see something deeply embedded in American culture, even beyond race.
The word racism seemed inadequate to capture the full effect and total experience of being in a world in which every single thing that you could and could not do was based upon what you look like, a world in which everyone was in some ways consigned to preconceived notions as to who should be where, and people had to be careful to stay in their place or it could mean their very lives.
Wilkerson looks to India, where we're used to seeing caste, and to Germany, where the Nazis created a racial hierarchy that formalized persecution and ultimately genocide. Drawing on the works of past anthropologists and historians, she reveals America's own insidious and artificial caste system, a strict hierarchy with rules that set in place both privilege and privation. You write of caste as the, quote, infrastructure of our divisions. Now, in what ways does caste help us think about what's going on in American history and now?
The word caste is a reminder of an infrastructure beneath something something that's larger. It's something that sits beneath the foundation. It is the foundation, the framework for how people interact with one another. And so I have come to believe that caste, the infrastructure, the hierarchies that we often don't see, the bones of a thing. I think of caste as the bones and race as the skin. And that is a way to see that race is used or has been used historically as the cue, as the signal, as the indicator of where an individual fits in the pre-existing hierarchy that had been created from the time of colonial era America.
Slavery from the beginning manifests that hierarchy, one life worth more than another. But Wilkerson sees a continuity, waves of European immigrants arriving in this country and, in a sense, learning they are white, and therefore above those who aren't.
When you're in a caste system, a hierarchy, everyone is affected by it. It's about the investment in the hierarchy, how one moves about in a hierarchy. And the insidious thing about such a hierarchy is it's something that we don't see. Again, bones versus skin. You can see the skin, you can see the outward manifestations, but you don't often see those the unseen inputs and triggers and assumptions, the unconscious biases that pervade society that are there below the surface of consciousness, that have been ways that everyone has been socialized to know and recognize who is very likely to be in positions of power, who is likely to be poor, who is likely to be on the margins.
Who is likely to sit in a position of power in the boardroom? Who is likely to live in certain neighborhoods? Who is likely to be stopped by police and treated with brutality? The focus of current Black Lives Matter protests.
American history is reflective of the ebbs and flows, progress and pushback, moving forward and then receding. That's essentially the history of our country. And so this is a moment, another moment that could be potentially a sea change. I view it as being the cusp of an awakening to a part of much of American history that many people may not have known. The goal of this work is to allow us to see, again, the structure that we have inherited, to be able to push forward, but most importantly, to recognize that we all have a stake in it, and to recognize that it will take each and every one of us to make it the strongest house possible.
But I have to say that in reading this, caste, as you describe it, seems even more fixed in a sense than race. As a concept, as a structure. Is it something that is fixable?
I would like to believe that it's fixable. I wouldn't have written this if I didn't think that it was. I have to remain hopeful. I have to remain, I have to believe that once awakened to our history and to our current reality, as has occurred in recent months, that this would move all of us to want to bridge these divides, to find ways to scale the walls that have been built between us, and to recognize that these are false and artificial divisions. These are man-made divisions, and if they were made by man, then they can also be fixed by man.
All right, the book is Caste, Isabel Wilkerson. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Turn it back to Vicki.
Great, thank you, Barbara. Great video. It's short, but good summary. And there are several other really good videos out there for anybody who's interested. We are going to follow up this discussion with links to some resources, and we can certainly include the links to some other videos, including there's one with Brian Stevenson, the author of Just Mercy and the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. That's well worth watching. That one takes about an hour. There's another one with Ken Burns, the historian, in conversation with Isabel Wilkerson. Some really great interviews. If you just Google Isabel Wilkerson interviews, you'll find some great material. So next, let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen. And please stick around with us. We are going to do the breakout groups. Stick around for the breakout groups, even if you didn't finish the book. It's okay. It's all right. And if you didn't finish the book, after tonight's discussion, my suggestion is jump to the end, read the last chapter about the plumber, read the epilogue, because that's, and then, but finish the book at some point. But if you do nothing else, or just as a review, do that. All right, so we're going to go into our breakout groups. Wendy is working on putting those together for us. And we'll have 25 to 30 minutes to discuss, to introduce yourselves, and then to discuss any or all of the questions that were emailed to everybody. Don't panic if you didn't get to read that email with the questions in it. Our committee has put together 4 questions. There will be a facilitator in each of the groups, and the facilitator will have the questions and can start the session by reading those 4 questions for you. And then you can answer all of them, you can answer one of them, you can move on to something else. But as you know, we would like you to focus on the topic of the book and the themes in the book. There is a help button when you get into your small groups. If you end up in a group that is either too big or too small, the goal is around 8 people, then let us know through that help button. It'll be next to chat in your small group. And your facilitator may ask for somebody to volunteer to be a scribe in your group, because you're going to get a 5-minute warning. With that 5-minute warning, we'd like you to pull together one key takeaway from your discussion. Not from every question that you're discussing, but one key takeaway from your discussion. And then we'll come back together and we will do a readout of some of those, but we won't have time to go through all of them. But we would ask your scribe to put in the chat when we're all back together your one key takeaway. So the other things to remember, most of us are members of book groups, whether it's through Together Women Rise or other book groups, but just keep in mind some of the basic rules. We want everyone to participate who wants to participate, to contribute. We want everybody to be active listeners. And then the other technical point, when you're in your small group, it helps if you put yourself on mute when you're not talking, because there can be some feedback. So Wendy is busy working on her magic here to put us into our groups. But please, please, please come back. We do have an exciting announcement about our next book group meeting that you don't want to miss. And we'll be giving away copies of the book for our next discussion too. Wendy, are we ready? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
We are all ready, and Barbara and Vicki, you will be in groups with other facilitators, so you can just be participants. We won't need you as backups after all. All right, so I'm going to open up all the rooms now. It'll just take a minute. You'll be automatically put into your room. Enjoy your discussion, everyone.
Wow. Very, very powerful. We'll wait for everybody to get back. But wow, that was fun. And we thought we had given plenty of time for discussion, and we still didn't get through half of what we wanted to talk about.
No, our group could have talked for another half an hour.
Right. We got a great start. And before I forget to say this at the end, let me say it now as we do our readouts. But our book group committee really wanted this to be a starting point. We wanted this to be, we chose the book so as a catalyst, as a starting point for what we hope will be continuing discussions about oppression, racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is not the end of this discussion. Susan had a great point in our group. You know, one thing that all of us can do to help break down the caste system is give your copy of the book to somebody else, you know,
Yes.
pass it along. Let's get everybody reading and talking about this because awareness is the first step, right? So if you want to share a takeaway in the chat so everybody can see some of the main points that came out in the discussions. Is there any of the groups, any representative from any of the groups who would like to share a takeaway from their discussion? And
We would, that's okay.
yes, please. Thank you, Shanice.
We had a wonderful discussion, and we were just saying how this is uncomfortable, and we have to be uncomfortable to have the impetus to change. Without that, will people really change or not? And then realizing our system in itself is set up in a caste system. Even when we meet people, what do you do? You know, what do your parents do? And our facilitator had a wonderful idea. I was like, well, what can you ask instead? And she said, what are you passionate about? When you meet people and getting to know them, ask that question. And then the last thing I like to ask is that thinking about, especially with Together Women Rise, what we can do to bring in women to the table where decisions are made.
Great, thank you so much. Those are great takeaways and great observations. Any of the other facilitators?
I'll share from our group.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, and we did go, I got us a little off topic because we started out by talking about whether or not before we read the book, we had really thought of the United States as a caste system, and most of us had not. That's those people over there. So that's one thing that's kind of a takeaway, how we like to talk about those people over there and not us right here. But the other thing that resonated with a number of us was not the comparison with, but how the Third Reich, Nazi Germany, used the United States as a model for how they oppressed and held down a group of people. And when we think about, if you went out and talked to the average American about what they think about the Holocaust, their response would be, oh, that is so horrible. And how could those people let that happen? And the comparisons for what happened there versus, because we did have a Holocaust here. We had a genocide here. And we don't think of it that way. So just how that comparison was really kind of very eye-opening and thought-provoking for members of our group.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Susan. Sorry. Yeah, somebody else wanted to pipe up. I couldn't get myself unmuted. You'd think by now I can.
Sorry, I was going to say, Susan, thank you very much for that. That was one of the most interesting things that she brought to my attention. And you mentioned we had a genocide here. I would argue it's ongoing.
Yes.
All you have to do is look around you in the legal system, the educational system, the policing system every day.
Yeah. I can share a mighty group number one. We had a fantastic discussion. It was very, very open and thought-provoking. And one of the things that we talked about is when we are white, things are invisible to us. And just recognizing that there is this whole other sort of world of things that are, and meaning that is going on around us that is invisible to us because we are a member of the dominant caste. We talked about human nature, the human nature of trying to fit in and asking those questions, and yet now recognizing and reminding ourselves how corrosive those questions can be to our desire to make true connection with people. We talked about how wonderful it would be if we could study and teach this book more broadly in schools and have these, have more comfortability, is that a word, with these discussions, those uncomfortable discussions that Shanice was referring to, and taking a broader view when we teach history. Again, recognizing that anytime I talk about history from a dominant caste perspective, I have to recognize that I've got that lens on when I'm talking about history, and making sure to bring more voices and more perspective into what we refer to as big H history. And then we didn't get to the question about what could Together Women Rise do to make a difference, but we would love to maybe discuss that at another opportunity, because I think that's a really important question.
Good point. I think Wendy is going to give us a survey question in a little bit about, would you like to see more discussions like this? So keep your eyes open for that as she pulls that up. Vina's group, I'm reading in the chat, was institutional racism, shocked at how pervasive it is. We all agreed that we have to be more informed and speak up and confront things as we see it. Good points. Any of the other groups?
Well, a lot of what we talked about has been said by other people at this point, but I guess our little sentence takeaway that we had was that we need to really be sensitive, those, in the dominant caste, of the way we speak and even the words we use, like, I slaved over that meal. I mean, things that we've said for years that we don't even hear ourselves, and that we need to start being more sensitive to even words we use that can be offensive to other people.
Really good point. And I know some people think we've taken that too far, but personally, I think it's a matter of politeness, not necessarily political correctness. It's, being considerate of other people's feelings. And somebody else pointed out to me how we use the word crazy. That's crazy. And, there are other ways to express that was amazing, or that's a surprise. So we all can work and be better. Anybody else? Any other comments before we go into our exciting announcements?
I'll share from
Thank you.
you are most welcome. Our group was extremely thoughtful, and they looked at the meaning of caste. How, what does this mean, and how does it affect our lives? And so they looked at it, as much as in depth as you can in that amount of time. And so they looked at it from different angles and how it affects life. Our key takeaway was awareness. We all need to be more aware, both in words and actions.
Love it. Love it. I have personally discussed this book already with another book group, and have yet another book group to discuss it with. And every time they're there's new stuff that comes out. I love this. All right, anybody else?
So my group, I think the takeaway at the end was that we talked about how important it was to have the next generation aware of this. You use the word awareness, and to, you know, have this hopefully be required reading. We started out with middle school, but then I think we decided high school was probably a little more ready. They would be more ready for it. Their minds are a little bit more independent by then, and they're not so influenced by their peers. But I think what we also decided or realized, somebody brought up, that we can't just wait for this next generation. We have to own it. We have to get on it now. We have to be not just aware, but we have to start taking action ourselves. And I thought that was a really good point. We can't just wait for the next generation. We need to educate them. Yes, give them the book, have it in high school and college, but then we also need to, you know, start taking actions and own it ourselves. That was Linda. Thank you, Linda.
More great points. I do see a comment, wishing we had more comments on question number 3. Question number 3 was, what are some of the ways that Together Women Rise can contribute on a global level to breaking down the caste system? And I think that's what we're working towards, is to have, as an organization, to be able to make progress and move on that question. And it's not just up to the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Committee. I do think it's up to the chapters, the chapter leaders, the regional leaders, to members, to prospective members. And you know, maybe that's a topic we want to take back to our chapters. So that's my thought. Anybody else?
This is Anne, and I would really like to see us find a way to attract more women of color so that we are more diverse and inclusive as an organization. And I'm not quite sure what the answer is to that, but I sure would like to see it happen. And if anybody has any thoughts about it, I'd be very interested.
And I've always felt kind of uncomfortable that we end up being a group of white women who are, quote unquote, coming to the aid of the grantee, who's always a people of color. And that's so frustrating. We've had in our group, been fortunate enough that when we've had groups from India, say, teaching women to run a business in India, we have women in the group who are Indian who've been there, who actually knows what the country is like. And that made me feel better. But, you know, like, here we are, the great white hope, you know, it's just kind of frustrating sometimes.
And I was on the original diversity committee along with Kathy Shearer. And one of the things we did was we took a look at the Dining for Women webpage, and it was all white women. And there was a picture of an early Dining for Women event, dinner, and it was people standing around a very lovely wooden dining room table and windows all around it with a tablecloth and linen napkins and everything. That isn't how everybody has a dinner. So it was just so subtle that it was very, very difficult. And I've started, in any organization I work with, we take a look at their newsletter or their website, and initially you can find a lot that will help you change your view or your organization's brand.
Thanks, Barbara. Somebody did point out in the comments that changing our name is one step, and not to put anybody on the spot, but if somebody from the board wants to talk about what steps the board is taking to work on these issues as an organization, you're welcome to
I'm on the board, but I had a thought just to the question about how to attract more women of color in general. I think sometimes it can be daunting to always be the only Black person in the room. I'll speak for myself because I'm Black. I think it's helpful when we invite, well, one, each chapter should be intentionally reaching out to someone that they actually have a relationship with. So maybe it's you spent time, dinner, lunch, going on walks, you have a good relationship with them, telling them about the organization that way. And then really sharing that when you come, feel free to bring 3 to 4 people with you. So it doesn't feel like you're the only new person to come into a space, but it could be a group of people. So maybe that's a model that we could always do, intentionally relationships one-on-one, but then when the invite comes, say, please have 2 or 3 of your friends come.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I know there are initiatives, and I know we're moving forward as an organization. And I'm sure that will be communicated. And we should all read the dish. And but again, don't wait. Shanice has some great ideas right there. So let's all do it. There's definitely outreach that we can each and every one of us be doing. So I want to be mindful of people's time. We've got people on the East Coast, people on the West Coast. We still have some exciting announcements and the spinning the wheel for the books. I hate to cut anybody off. If anybody wants to add anything else in the chat, please feel free. But I'm going to turn it back to Barbara for final announcements, and then stick around for the books.
Okay. Thank you, Vicki. Am I off mute? Yes. Okay. But before we get to the announcements, and please stick around for them because we have some exciting news. I'd like everyone to know that there are 2 ways in which you can learn of and register for the book club events. You can join goodreads.com if not already a member. And from the community tab on that website, select groups and then Together Women Rise. This site will provide you not only with the book club selections and dates, but also with continued discussions of our big read events, plus a wide selection of related books and the ability to suggest other books. You can also register for book club events through the Together Women Rise website under the Join Us tab, then choose the book club in the drop-down menu. Now, our next big read will be Standing in the Way, From Trafficking Victim to Human Rights Activist by Anjali Tamang and Sarah Simons. Sarah is the founder of the Her Future Coalition, which, by the way, is one of the past Together Women Rise grantees. We're excited to share that the co-authors will be joining us for our discussion of their book on November 3rd, 2021. So mark that date in your calendar. November 3rd, we will have the authors on the call with us. The story, it's a compelling memoir in which Anjali shares her incredible journey of being trafficked at age 12 from her village in Nepal to the red light areas of Kolkata, India. Despite enduring the worst abuse imaginable, today, Anjali is working to combat trafficking and protect the next generation of girls in her community. She is able to do so because of the help and healing she has received since being rescued in 2008. The stories of the courageous people who freed her and helped her in her recovery are woven into the book alongside personal recollections and insights. Now, I have another announcement that's hot off the press. We're very excited to announce we have special speakers for our October 7th national webinar. We will be discussing our featured grantee, please excuse my pronunciation here, it's terrible. Nationalai Maasai Conservancy in Kenya. Our speakers will include internationally renowned novelist and poet, Margaret Atwood. Ms. Atwood is a longtime activist for social justice and the environment and is a strong supporter of our featured grantee. She will be joined by Maggie Ria Koshal, again, my pronunciation, I apologize, who is based in Masai Mara, Kenya. Watch our website and your email for more on this event and to register. I was flabbergasted when I heard we're going to have Margaret Atwood on a call. So October 7th, hopefully everyone can make both of those future calls. And now Wendy will spin the wheel to determine the 3 lucky winners who will receive a copy of Standing in the Way. While she's doing that, I would ask if you would all please take just a few moments to enter into the chat a word or a phrase that best describes how you feel after having been part of tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Wow, I'm really sorry that I was doing the tech and not in those rooms discussing all of this with you. Really wonderful to hear all of the comments though. So I have just put up a little poll as well. It should appear on your screen. It's just one question about your feelings about Together Women Rise hosting other events like this, where we talk about issues like oppression and caste and racism. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, as well as entering your one word into the chat. All right, I'm going to share my little screen. We are giving out 3 copies of the book Standing in the Way, which is our next book club discussion, as Barbara said. I have whittled down all of the names on here to people who were at least on this meeting during the breakout groups. So we should be able to find a winner. Because you need to be here. So let's see how it goes. Carol Sims, are you still here? Carol, you're here?
Yes.
Wonderful. I will email you and confirm your address to send you the book. Congrats, Carol. I'm going to take you off now because you can't win twice. Margie Taylor.
Awesome, I am here.
All right. I will send a book out to you. And our last book giveaway. Linda Baxter.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I love the excitement. All right, Carol, Margie, and Linda. Those books will be coming to you very soon. And please do join us for the discussion on November 3rd. And in case you're totally confused, Margaret Atwood event, which is part of our national virtual chapter meeting on October the 7th, next book club event on November the 3rd to discuss Standing in the Way. Who am I turning it back over to here? Vicki and Barbara and all of us want to thank you.
Yeah, I think that is it. What, Barbara, any final words? No, this is, I'm so excited. This is wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you. I think this is the best record of people who've stuck around to the end. It shows you the investment and the buy-in on this topic. And great. I didn't choose this book as part of the book group. Good job, guys. Good job, committee, on choosing this book. So let's continue the discussion, and thank you all. Have a great night. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you to our facilitators. Thank you so much to everyone who facilitated our groups.
And thanks, Wendy, for your technical assistance, the wizard behind the curtain. Yeah. Thanks, Barbara, for co-hosting with me. Thank you, everybody.